The week the field started writing back. It didn't happen at night with lights and legends. It happened at noon, in honest sun, while Jonah was greasing a hinge and Sera was counting shade minutes with a thumb and a squint. A breeze came, straightened the wheat, and left behind a shape it hadn't found anywhere else. A clean, deliberate curve pressed into living stems without breaking any. Not a prank, not a tire track. A mark. By evening there were 3. By morning there were 9. And if you looked from the windmill ladder, they weren't random at all. They were letters of a language the ground had waited centuries to remember. Here's why a few careful bends could end a quiet life. Symbols attract witnesses, and witnesses invite claims. If the patterns are agricultural anomalies, corporate drones will fence the miracle and sell tickets to the study. If they're a reply to Sera's song, her people might come to translate and take the pen away from Earth mid-sentence. One misstep and Jonah's farm turns museum, Sera turns specimen, and the charter Oren left becomes a bookmark no one reads. The field is speaking now. If they answer wrong, the whole valley will lose its turn to talk. The first sign sat in the low swale like a smile no one taught. It wasn't cut. It was persuaded. Each stem lay along a soft arc as if guided by patient hands. Jonah ran his palm above it without touching, the way you hover over a sleeping child so you don't wake what you love. Wind doesn't do that, he said. Sera crouched, eyes bright without shining, and traced the air just above the bend. No fracture, she murmured. The tissue still wicks. This is cooperative. He climbed the windmill, 8 rungs up, good view, bad memory of a childhood fall, then whistled low. 3 arcs formed a spiral, nested like seashell memory. Not art on the field, art with it. The dog barked once like punctuation. By late afternoon, another mark appeared toward the ridge, a straight run bending into a hook, elegant as calligraphy. Sera sketched quickly in her notebook, overlaying both shapes on her map of water pathways. The curves matched the buried stream bed she'd guessed at months ago. It's drawing its bones, she said. Earth is outlining where it remembers itself strong. Jonah let the idea find a chair in his head. So the ground is mapping the ground. Also asking, Sera added, these proportions, ratios of distance to shade, look like a question looking for the rest of its grammar. He laughed once. You and Oren taught me soil has memory. Now it has handwriting. When evening came, the shapes held like a mood, and the breeze refused to edit. Word travels like dandelion. Some seeds land soft, some land in your tea. 2 pickups parked at the end of the lane and didn't trespass. Binoculars flashed in late sun. Jonah didn't wave. He brought a stack of folding chairs to the gate and set them out as if hospitality were sandbags. Porch rules, he told Sera. If they're going to stare, we'll give their staring somewhere to sit. Mrs. Linden arrived first, uninvited but expected, carrying a jar of pickled beans and the kind of gaze that doesn't miss. You got company, she said, and a tidy miracle. Jonah took the binos, passed them to her. You'll see what we see. Nothing more mysterious than the truth. Sera knelt in the dust with chalk and drew the 2 largest curves, then sketched the swale and the wind direction arrows. It is not a sign from the sky, she said plainly, loud enough for the road. It is a reply from the ground. Pike pulled up, left his engine idling until he remembered to trust them, then shut it off. You sure this isn't kids with boards and string? He asked, half teasing, half afraid to hope. Jonah pointed to an unbent stem, to the way it lay like a combed cowlick. Children don't convince wheat to keep breathing while it changes direction. That got him a few chuckles and a few frowns. Suspicion likes to share a bench with humor when it's deciding where to eat. As dusk set its hands on the ridge, the crowd didn't swell. It condensed. Fewer people, tighter attention. The field stayed whisper still, as if the act of being seen was already enough answer for one day. By morning, the archivist was back. Oren walked out of the cedar brake with dew on their coat and the calm of a person who measures storms by what they fix afterward. They didn't approach the curves immediately. They circled, counting steps, watching how shadows skated across arcs without catching. Proportions, they murmured. The old ones. Sera handed over her sketch. Oren nodded, eyes bright. Yes, ratios from bedrock hydraulics. This is watershed geometry disguised as poetry. Jonah blinked. Meaning? Meaning, Oren said. The ground is marking the safest paths for water to travel when the angry rains return. It's not warning you about visitors. It's reminding you where to build friendship with a flood. Jonah felt his shoulders drop like a gate lowered after a storm passes. Fear had been the simplest theory. Relief was more complicated. So, a message you can build with. Exactly, Oren said. But don't celebrate public. Patterns draw attention. Attention draws stories. Stories draw ownership. Sera tapped her pencil on the map's margins. Can we translate privately and act publicly? You can, Oren said. And you should. Fast, before your helpful neighbors invite the world to help louder. The archivist set down a slim tool, nothing blinking, just a ruler that folded like patient paper. I'll help align your next trenches, but we lay them like you always do, by hand, with reasons you can explain to people who would rather judge than learn. Which is, Jonah sighed, most people right before lunch. They started with string and stakes because tools that look ordinary don't land you in meetings. Sera laid twine along the curves, matching the grain's persuasion to a line a human could follow. Jonah worked the spade where the new trench would begin, his foot on the step, his weight translating thought into earth. Oren marked proportional intervals, 1.618 repeating, turning ratios into shovel lengths nobody could patent. By midday, the start of a diversion swale was visible to anyone with eyes and the will to see simplicity. Pike leaned on the fence. You're digging a question mark, he said. We're digging a maybe, Jonah answered. When the sky gets its temper back, water will move this way instead of through your kitchen. That brought Pike closer. You'll help me lay one after? Saturday, Sera promised. Bring rope, not drones. The dog carried a stake like a herald. Oren laughed with their whole face, which made them look more human than any mimicry ever had. Car after car slowed, watched, and went on. A drone hovered at the county line and considered the legality of curiosity. No one called enforcement. The simple act of digging had made the miracle look like work, and work is the town's favorite disguise for grace. At dusk, after the last trench line was tied off and the last argument with a stubborn root was won by patience, the field sighed. Everyone felt it, the way rooms exhale after hard truth lands and doesn't break the floor. A new symbol unfurled near the ridge. Not a curve this time, but a set of nested diamonds, each formed by stems leaning in deference, each corner pointing to a fence post Jonah had replaced last winter. Sera climbed the windmill. Oren stood at midpoint, hand up, measuring angles with the kind of joy math teachers hide for people brave enough to ask. Not water, Oren called. Boundary, Jonah tasted the word. You mean a claim? A reminder, Sera said from above. Where the field thinks it ends. Oren added softer. And where you should end too, when the market arrives with its tape measure. Jonah pictured glossy pamphlets with phrases like shared stewardship and data partnership. He pictured fences that talk back. Sera slid down the ladder. We will honor this edge, she said, touching the nearest post. No more acres just because the numbers say we could. The field is writing limits. Restraint again, Oren smiled. Your best technology. They set a ribbon, blue like Part 8 on that post, the small ceremony they'd invented to keep their courage from evaporating. Morning delivered a sedan, polite and dusty, with a man whose shirt fit like paperwork. Regional assessment, he said, showing a badge that announced authority without promising wisdom. Heard you're making improvements. Jonah led him along the visible trenches, the twine, the stakes. Nothing to hide, everything to explain. The man's pen clicked like an insect. Any unusual activity? He asked. Unusual like neighbors bringing pie again, Jonah said lightly, or unusual like my windmill learning to play the harmonica. The assessor didn't laugh, but his eyes conceded the line. Sera met them at the swale, marker in hand, presenting diagrams that translated glyphs into slope ratios and flow rates. We're preparing for high-intensity bursts, she said. New normal storms. Our trenches softened the blow. The pen stopped clicking. The man nodded. Good planning. Shareable? Saturday workshop, Jonah said, grateful for Lyndon's flyer. Public. Come as a citizen. The assessor glanced at the horizon where a drone pretended to be a bird. We're all citizens when the creeks rise, he admitted and put his badge away sooner than regulation required. He left with nothing confiscated and a quietly folded map tucked into his pocket, like a permission he'd given himself. By midweek, the symbols slowed, less like broadcast, more like punctuation. Sera guessed the field had said what mattered. Oren agreed. Archives prefer tidy endings. Work took the foreground, shovels, levels, straw wattles, rock checks. Jonah's hands remembered the old geometry, eyeing grade by feel, reading water by scent. Neighbors drifted in ones and twos. Mrs. Linden brought teenagers who hadn't yet decided if learning looked cool on them. Pike brought rope and an apology for last month's sharp words that no one repeated. Sera kept the tone steady. No magic, she said. Only listening. Only limits. If anyone asked about the curves, she pointed at the sky, then at the soil, then at the trench. We translate here, she'd say, tapping the shovel. Into this. The dog slept in the shade of the twine stake like a small foreman on break. By evening, the first light rain came, just enough to test the angles. The swales took it, slowed it, shared it. No puddles where puddles used to sulk. Jonah exhaled the breath he'd been carrying since the first curve appeared. Message received, he said to nobody in particular, and the field kept its peace. Saturday arrived with pastry and skepticism. The co-op yard filled with tables, rope, chalk, and the kind of coffee that tastes like doctrine. Jonah talked shade discipline. Sera talked water memory. Oren pretended to be shy and then diagrammed hydraulic ratios so clean even the mayor forgot to politic for a minute. They avoided the word glyph. They said pattern and flow path and safe ditch. Mrs. Linden collected questions in a metal tin like church offerings. Anonymous, sharp, human. One said, who decides where rain belongs? Sera answered without touching the tin. The land decides, she said, and we agree to be taught. Another asked, what if the companies come? Oren opened their coat enough to show the charter's duplicate sewn into the lining. Then we practice refusal, they said gently. Polite, repeated, documented. Pike demonstrated tying ribbon to posts, blue for boundary, red for memory, until the teenagers began to compete for neatest knot. The assessor from earlier hovered at the edge, listening like a man unlearning a way of seeing. Clouds built. Nobody flinched. When the first fat drops fell, everything was already in motion. Tarps over paper, chalk into pockets, hands pointing toward drains that now existed. It rained and nobody ran. Belonging sounded like water doing what it was asked. That night, after chairs stacked and jokes wore out, Jonah and Sera walked the field in thin silver moon. The symbols were fainter now, curves relaxing, diamonds loosening their jaw. It said enough, Jonah murmured. It trusts us to finish our half. Sera pressed her palm to the ground, eyes closed. It isn't leaving, she said. It's resting. Language sleeps between uses. Oren appeared at the edge like punctuation. I should go, they said. Carry this to other valleys before markets write their versions. Jonah shook their hand with both of his. Come back when you miss being understood. Oren smiled with more teeth than usual. Archivists always miss that. A breeze moved the wheat in a wave that broke around their boots, as if avoiding toes were manners. The dog sighed a long farm dog sigh, the kind that forgives an entire week. They stood a while, counting differences. Fewer drones, more neighbors. Fewer questions, better ones. The field felt not quieter, but complete. If it speaks again? Jonah asked. We'll listen, Sera answered. And we'll answer in ditches and shade. Morning found a shovel leaning where a sermon should be. Jonah tightened the last rock check, hands black with the kind of dirt that whispers stay. Sera marked the ledger. Rainfall, flow rate, no pooling at Hall's Corner. Mrs. Linden texted a photo of teens tying blue ribbons on their grandparents' fence posts. boundaries becoming local fashion. Pike sent a map sketched on a napkin. "My kitchen stays dry if I copy your curve here?" Jonah drew an arrow and wrote, "Yes. Bring pie." The assessor mailed a single line on county letterhead. "Community best practice. Voluntary adoption encouraged." No mandates, no finis. For once, a document that knew when to be small. By sunset, the valley glowed the ordinary way. Gold on green, windmill arms keeping time. The curves had softened into memory, but the trenches held shape, and that was the point. Messages become roads when you walk them enough. On the porch, Sera tied one last ribbon, white this time, on the ledger nail. "For quiet victories," she said. Jonah set his hat on the rail and watched the dog try to be everywhere at once. "Think the ground's done talking?" he asked. She smiled, eyes catching the last light the way good water does. "No," she said. "I think it trusts us to speak now." And somewhere beneath their boots, bedrock hummed the smallest yes a person can hear and still feel more at home than before.